I still remember the exact pattern of the wallpaper in that hallway. Tiny gold fleur-de-lis on cream background repeating endlessly as I walked toward the bridal suite. My heels clicked against the hardwood floor, each step echoing in the empty corridor while music and laughter drifted up from the reception below. Derek had been gone for 23 minutes. I know because I'd checked my watch 4 times, trying not to look like the worried wife tracking her husband at her own brother's wedding. He'd said he was going to the bathroom, kissed my cheek, and disappeared into the crowd of dancing guests. That was 23 minutes ago. He's probably just talking to someone, I whispered to myself, smoothing down my bridesmaid dress for the 100th time. The deep burgundy fabric suddenly felt too tight, too warm. Stop being paranoid. But I couldn't stop. That nagging feeling in my stomach, the one I'd been ignoring for months, had grown into something I couldn't push away anymore. The late nights, the new cologne, the way he'd volunteered so eagerly to help Amber with wedding planning. She's family now, he'd said with that charming smile of his. Just trying to be a good brother-in-law. I checked downstairs first, scanned the bar, the dance floor, even peeked into the men's bathroom hallway. Nothing. Then I remembered Amber mentioning that the bridal suite upstairs had a private bathroom. Maybe Derek had gone up there because the downstairs ones were crowded. It made sense. Perfect sense. The second floor of the venue was quieter, decorated with the same elegant cream and gold theme. Soft lighting made everything look dreamlike, romantic. I passed by framed mirrors and vintage photographs, my reflection catching in the glass. I looked tired. When had I started looking so tired? The bridal suite was at the end of the hall, door slightly open. A sliver of warm light spilled onto the carpet. Derek, I called softly, not wanting to disturb anyone if Amber was in there touching up her makeup. You up here? No answer. I pushed the door open wider, and my entire world shattered into 1,000 pieces. Derek had his back to me, still in his perfectly tailored gray suit, but his hands were tangled in the fabric of a wedding dress. Amber's wedding dress, the intricate lace and beading I'd helped her choose 4 months ago, the dress she'd been wearing just 30 minutes earlier as she danced with my brother. They were kissing, not a friendly peck, not an accidental brush of lips, a deep, passionate kiss that spoke of familiarity, of practice, of something that had been going on for far longer than this single moment. Amber's veil had been removed, tossed carelessly onto a nearby chair. The back of her dress was partially unzipped, revealing the smooth skin of her back. Derek's hand was right there, fingers splayed across her spine like he had every right to touch her that way. My purse slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud. They didn't hear it. They were too lost in each other. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't scream. Even though every cell in my body was screaming inside. The room started spinning. Or maybe I was spinning. I couldn't tell. All I could see was my husband kissing my brother's bride on their wedding day in her wedding dress while 200 guests celebrated downstairs. How long had this been happening? How many lies had I believed? How many times had I defended him to Claire? Insisted she was wrong. Insisted he would never. A hand touched my shoulder. I jumped, gasping, spinning around so fast I almost lost my balance. My brother Nathan stood there, still in his tuxedo, looking impossibly calm. His tie was perfectly straight, not a hair out of place. His expression was relaxed, almost serene, like he'd just come from a pleasant conversation about the weather. Nathan, I choked out, my voice barely a whisper. I grabbed his arm, tried to pull him away from the doorway before he could see what I'd seen, before his heart could break the way mine was breaking. Nathan, don't look. We need to. But he wasn't looking into the room. He was looking at me. And then he smiled. Not a sad smile, not a shocked smile, a knowing smile that made absolutely no sense given what was happening 3 feet away from us. He leaned in close, his mouth near my ear, and whispered 6 words that made even less sense than his smile. Relax. The show is about to begin. Then he winked at me. Actually winked like we were sharing some kind of inside joke at a casual family dinner instead of standing outside a room where our spouses were betraying us. I stared at him, my brain struggling to process anything. Show? What show? Why wasn't he angry? Why wasn't he charging into that room? Why wasn't he? Nathan gently took my elbow and guided me backward away from the doorway. His grip was firm but not rough, steering me down the hallway like a captain navigating a ship through calm waters. I was too shocked to resist, too confused to do anything but stumble along beside him. Nathan, what are you? I tried again, but he pressed a finger to his lips. Trust me, he said quietly. Just trust me for 15 more minutes. He opened a door to a small room I hadn't noticed before. Some kind of storage space converted into a sitting area with a velvet couch and dim lighting. He guided me inside. Stay here, Nathan said, his voice still impossibly calm. Don't come out. Don't confront them. Not yet. Not yet, Nathan. Your wife is in there with my husband there. The words caught in my throat. Saying it out loud made it real in a way that seeing it hadn't quite accomplished. I know, Nathan said simply. I know exactly what they're doing. I've known for a while now. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. You know? How can you know and still? I gestured helplessly at everything. At the wedding that had just happened, at the reception still happening downstairs. Nathan checked his watch, a sleek silver thing that had been a gift from Amber. The irony wasn't lost on me. 15 minutes, he repeated. Everything will make sense in 15 minutes. I promise. Nathan, I don't understand. You will. He squeezed my shoulder once, almost apologetically. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? I opened my mouth to argue, to demand answers, to insist that we march back into that room and confront them both right now. But something in Nathan's eyes stopped me. He had a plan. Whatever was happening, whatever impossible reason he had for staying calm, he had thought this through. Okay, I heard myself say. 15 minutes. Nathan nodded, satisfied, and slipped out of the room, closing the door softly behind him. I sank onto the velvet couch, my legs finally giving out. My hands were shaking so badly I had to clasp them together in my lap. The image of Derek and Amber was burned into my mind, replaying over and over, his hands on her, her fingers in his hair, the casual intimacy of it, like they'd done this 100 times before. And Nathan knew. My brother knew his bride was cheating on him, knew my husband was the one she was cheating with, and he'd still stood at that altar 2 hours ago and said, I do. Why? From downstairs, I could hear the DJ's voice getting louder and more animated. The bass of the music thumped through the floor, voices raised in celebration. I checked my phone. 10 minutes had passed since Nathan left me here. 5 more minutes until what? Until the show began. What show? My heart hammered against my ribs. I stood up, paced the small room, sat back down, stood up again. I couldn't stay here. I needed to know what was happening. Quietly, I cracked open the door and peeked out. The hallway was empty. I could hear the DJ's voice booming through the speakers now, echoing up the stairs. I started walking toward the sound. Nathan's voice carried clearly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for celebrating with us today. Before we continue, there's something important I need to share with everyone here. 6 months earlier, I'd been chopping vegetables for Sunday dinner when Nathan called to say he was bringing someone special. My kitchen smelled like garlic and rosemary, and Derek had been humming while setting the table, something he used to do all the time before work consumed his life. Someone special, I teased my brother over the phone. Nathan, you've been dating this girl for what, 3 weeks? 4 weeks, he corrected, and I could hear the smile in his voice. And yeah, I know it's fast, but I really like her. I think you will, too. Derek looked up from arranging the napkins. Nathan's bringing a girl finally. I was starting to think he'd married his job. When they arrived an hour later, Amber was exactly the type of person you wanted your brother to date. She had warm brown eyes, an easy laugh, and she'd brought homemade cookies, even though Nathan told her not to bring anything. She complimented my cooking, asked genuine questions about my work at the school, and seemed fascinated by every family story I told. "Oh, you have to tell me more about Nathan as a kid," she said, eyes sparkling with mischief. "I need ammunition for later." Derek laughed, pouring her a glass of wine. "Trust me, I've got stories. Nathan and I go way back. Let me tell you about the time he tried to impress a girl by learning the guitar and broke his finger in the process. They hit it off immediately. I remember feeling grateful for that, watching my husband be so welcoming to my brother's new girlfriend. Derek was charming that night, the way he used to be when we first started dating. Attentive, funny, present. We should all get together more often, Derek suggested as they were leaving. Actually, Amber, I work downtown near that new coffee shop you mentioned. If you ever want to grab lunch while you're settling into the city, let me know. I can show you around, introduce you to some people." Amber's face lit up. "Really? That would be amazing. I barely know anyone here besides Nathan." "Of course," Derek said, flashing that smile that had made me fall in love with him 7 years ago. "What's family for?" I hugged them both goodbye, happy that my little brother had found someone who seemed so genuine. Over the next few weeks, Derek mentioned seeing Amber a few times. Coffee here, lunch there. He said she was having trouble finding a job in her field and he was helping her network. I thought it was sweet, thoughtful even. That's who Derek was, the man who went out of his way to help people. Or at least that's who I thought he was. The changes started small. So small I didn't notice them at first. Derek started working later, coming home after I'd already eaten dinner. His phone became an extension of his hand, always checking it, always typing. When I asked who he was texting, he'd say work stuff without looking up. "You seem stressed," I said one night, about 6 weeks after that first dinner with Amber. "Is everything okay at the office?" "Just a big project," Derek replied, loosening his tie. "It'll calm down soon." But it didn't calm down. It got worse. 3 months in, my best friend Claire called me on a Tuesday afternoon. I was grading papers in my classroom during my free period. "Hey, weird question," Claire said, her voice cautious. "I just saw Derek at Rosewood Cafe. He was having coffee with a woman, young brown hair. They seemed pretty friendly." My stomach twisted. "What do you mean friendly?" "I mean, he was leaning in close, laughing." She touched his arm a couple times. I didn't want to interrupt because I wasn't sure if it was a work thing, but... She trailed off. "I just thought you should know." I gripped my pen so hard it left an indent in my thumb. "Did you see what she looked like?" Claire described her and my chest loosened slightly. It sounded like Amber. Of course it was Amber. Derek was still helping her network, probably introducing her to potential employers. "It's Nathan's girlfriend," I explained, relief flooding through me. "Derek's been helping her find a job." "Oh." Claire sounded uncertain. "Okay, that makes sense, I guess. Sorry for worrying you." "No, it's fine. I appreciate you looking out for me." But after I hung up, the relief faded into something else, something uncomfortable. Why hadn't Derek mentioned having coffee with Amber today? He usually told me when he saw her. And why had they looked so friendly that Claire felt the need to call? That evening, I mentioned it casually while we were getting ready for bed. "Claire said she saw you and Amber at Rosewood today." Derek didn't miss a beat. "Yeah, I was introducing her to a colleague who might have an opening in his department." "Did it work out?" "I think so. She seemed excited about it." "See? Perfectly reasonable explanation. That's great, I said, climbing into bed. You didn't mention it earlier. Derek shrugged, scrolling through his phone. Didn't I? Sorry, it was just a quick coffee, barely worth mentioning. I watched him for a moment, his face illuminated by the blue glow of his screen. When had we stopped really talking? When had our conversations become these surface-level exchanges about logistics and schedules? Derek? Are we okay? He finally looked up, seeming genuinely surprised. Of course, we're okay. Why would you ask that? I don't know. You just seem distant lately, like you're always somewhere else, even when you're here. Derek put his phone down and pulled me close. I'm sorry. Work has been insane. But you're right. I need to be more present. How about we plan a weekend away? Just the two of us. Next month after this project wraps up. I nestled into his chest, wanting to believe him. That sounds perfect. But the weekend away never happened. The project never wrapped up, and Derek kept getting more distant. Meanwhile, Nathan and Amber's relationship moved fast. Engaged after 4 months, wedding planning immediately after. Suddenly, my weekends were filled with dress fittings, venue visits, and cake tastings. Amber wanted my opinion on everything, which I found flattering. She'd call me at least 3 times a week. What do you think about these centerpieces? She'd ask, sending me photos. Is burgundy too dark for an evening wedding? Should we do a cocktail hour or go straight to dinner? And Derek, ever helpful, would offer advice, too. He knew a great photographer. He had connections with a florist who could give them a discount. He'd even offered to help Amber pick up supplies when Nathan was stuck at work. You're being so wonderful, I told him one evening, watching him text with Amber about table linens. Amber's lucky to have you helping her. She's going to be family, Derek said without looking up. Besides, Nathan's swamped at work. Someone needs to help her. Nathan had been acting strange, though. Around week 12 of wedding planning, he started asking me odd questions during our weekly phone calls. How's Derek doing at work, he'd ask. Still working those late nights? Yeah, unfortunately. Why? Just wondering. You guys doing okay? You seem tired lately. I'm fine. Just busy with school and helping with your wedding. Right. The wedding. Something in his tone sounded off, but when I asked about it, he changed the subject. 2 months before the wedding, Nathan came over for dinner without Amber. Derek was working late as usual. Can I ask you something? Nathan said, pushing his food around his plate. And I need you to be honest with me. Of course. What's wrong? He studied my face for a long moment. Are you happy in your marriage? I mean, the question caught me off guard. That's... Nathan. Why are you asking me that? Just answer, please. I thought about the late nights, the distance, the feeling that something had shifted between Derek and me. But I smiled anyway. Every marriage has rough patches. We're fine. Nathan didn't look convinced, but he dropped it. 3 weeks before the wedding, I found the hotel receipt. The King's Crown Hotel dated for a Tuesday afternoon 2 weeks prior. Room service for 2. I stood in our closet, holding the small piece of paper, my hands trembling. Derek came home to find me sitting on the couch, the receipt on the coffee table between us. What's this? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. He barely glanced at it. Client meeting ran late. They booked me a room so I could freshen up before the evening presentation. Ordered dinner there since I didn't have time to go anywhere else. Room service for 2. The client joined me. We went over the proposal while we ate. He kissed the top of my head. Why are you checking up on me now? I should have pushed harder. Should have asked more questions, but I didn't. No, I said quietly. I just found it and was confused. Well, mystery solved, he smiled at me, that same charming smile. Trust me, okay? So, I did. God help me. I trusted him. The small room felt like it was closing in on me. I sat back down on the velvet couch, then stood up again, unable to stay still. My mind was racing, connecting dots I'd refused to see before. Nathan knew. Those 3 words kept repeating in my head like a drumbeat. My brother knew about Derek and Amber, and instead of stopping it, instead of calling off the wedding, he'd let it continue. He'd stood at that altar, exchanged vows, kissed his bride in front of 200 people, all while knowing she was sleeping with my husband. It didn't make sense. Nathan was protective, sometimes overly so. When we were kids, he'd gotten into a fight with a boy who'd made me cry in middle school. When my college boyfriend cheated on me, Nathan had driven 4 hours just to take me out for ice cream and tell me I deserved better. This wasn't like him, this calm, calculated approach to betrayal. Unless it wasn't calm at all, unless it was something else entirely. I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to think clearly. The photographer? Why did that matter? Nathan had insisted on hiring some specific photographer, someone more expensive than the others Amber had suggested. At the time, Amber had seemed annoyed by it, but Nathan had been firm. Trust me, he'd said. This guy is worth it. Trust me. The same words he'd said to me 10 minutes ago. I pulled out my phone and scrolled back through my text messages with Claire. Found the one from 2 months ago, the one I'd dismissed so easily. Saw Derek's car outside an apartment building on Riverside. Wasn't that where you said Amber lives? I'd texted back immediately. He was probably dropping off wedding supplies. He's been helping her a lot. Claire had responded with just one word. Okay. But it hadn't been okay, had it? Claire had known something was wrong. She'd tried to tell me in her careful way, and I'd shut her down because I didn't want to believe it. More memories surfaced, each one sharper than the last. Derek volunteering to help Amber with last-minute wedding errands. The 3 times Nathan had specifically suggested it. Actually, Derek, why don't you help Amber pick up the guest favors on Thursday? I've got that conference call I can't move. And Derek had agreed so quickly, so eagerly. Nathan had been setting them up, giving them opportunities to be alone together. But why? I stood and walked to the door again, pressing my ear against it. I could hear music from downstairs, voices, laughter, normal wedding sounds. How much time had passed? I checked my phone. 12 minutes since Nathan had left me here. 3 more minutes. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. What was going to happen in 3 minutes? What was this show Nathan had mentioned? I thought about the photographer again and suddenly something else clicked into place. At the rehearsal dinner last night, I'd noticed the photographer taking pictures of everything. Not just the traditional shots, but candid ones. Derek talking to Amber in the corner. Amber fixing Derek's tie when she thought no one was looking. The photographer had been everywhere, capturing moments that seemed insignificant at the time. Were they significant now? And the videographer. Nathan had hired a videographer, too, even though Amber said she didn't want one. Video cameras make me nervous, she'd said. But Nathan had insisted. It's our wedding day. We'll want to remember everything. Oh, God. Evidence. Nathan had been collecting evidence. I paced the small room, my burgundy dress swishing around my legs. How long had Nathan known? He'd asked me those strange questions 12 weeks into the wedding planning. Had he known then, or had he suspected and started investigating? I remembered something else. About 2 months ago, Nathan had asked me seemingly random questions about Derek's schedule, what time he usually came home from work, whether he traveled for business, if he had any hobbies that took him out of the house regularly. I'd thought Nathan was just making conversation, maybe trying to plan a surprise golf outing or something. But he'd been mapping Derek's movements, figuring out when he and Amber had opportunities to meet. My stomach turned. How many times had they been together? How many lies had Derek told me? Every late night at work, every business dinner, every weekend he'd said he needed to catch up on paperwork at the office. And Amber, sweet, bubbly Amber, who called me 3 times a week to ask my opinion on wedding details. Had she laughed about it with Derek? Had they joked about how clueless I was, how easy it was to fool me? The room felt too hot. I went to the small window and tried to open it, but it was sealed shut. Outside, the parking lot was full of cars belonging to wedding guests who had no idea what was really happening. People who thought they were celebrating love. I heard footsteps in the hallway and froze. They passed by my door and continued down the stairs. My hands were shaking again. 14 minutes had passed. 1 more minute until Nathan's 15-minute deadline. I couldn't stay in this room anymore. I had to know what was happening. Nathan would understand. He had to understand. I cracked the door open and peered out. The hallway was empty now. I could hear the DJ's voice more clearly from here. That overly enthusiastic tone DJs always used at weddings. But something was different. The music had stopped. Moving as quietly as possible in heels, I walked toward the staircase. Each step felt like moving through water, slow and heavy. Part of me wanted to run back to that little room and hide until this was all over. But I needed to see. Needed to witness whatever Nathan had planned. I reached the top of the stairs and looked down into the reception hall. From this angle, I could see most of the room. The tables with their burgundy and gold decorations. The dance floor where I'd watched my brother and Amber share their first dance less than an hour ago. The bar where Derek had been standing, drink in hand, probably thinking he'd gotten away with everything. Nathan was at the front of the room now near the DJ booth. He had a microphone in his hand. The lights had been adjusted, spotlights focusing on him. Every guest was turned toward him, champagne glasses in hand, expecting a toast or a sweet speech about love and commitment. If only they knew. I started walking down the stairs, my hand gripping the railing. My legs felt weak, but I forced them to keep moving. I had to get down there. Had to be present for whatever was about to happen. Nathan's voice carried through the speakers, warm and friendly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for celebrating with us today. I was halfway down the stairs now. A few guests near the back had noticed me, but most were focused on Nathan. I could see Derek near the bar, exactly where I'd pictured him. He looked relaxed, completely unsuspecting. Amber was on the opposite side of the room, near her bridesmaids, holding a glass of champagne and smiling. They had no idea. Before we continue, Nathan said, his smile perfectly in place, there's something important I need to share with everyone here. I reached the bottom of the stairs and slipped into the back of the reception hall, positioning myself behind a pillar where I could see but wouldn't be immediately visible. My heart was hammering so hard I thought everyone must be able to hear it. Nathan's eyes scanned the crowd, and for just a second they landed on me. He gave the smallest nod, so subtle that if I hadn't been looking directly at him, I would have missed it. Then he looked back at his guests, his smile widening in a way that didn't quite reach his eyes. But before Amber and I start our journey together as a married couple, he said, his voice still steady, still warm. I think everyone should know who they really are. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Nathan nodded to the DJ. And my entire world, already shattered upstairs in that bridal suite, exploded into a million pieces in front of 200 witnesses. The large screens that had been showing our family photos throughout the reception flickered. For a moment, there was just blue light and then an image appeared. Security camera footage, black and white, timestamp in the corner. Amber's apartment building. I recognized the entrance immediately. I'd been there twice, helping her move boxes when she first arrived in the city. The timestamp read, February 14th, Valentine's Day, 4 months ago. I watched Derek's car pull into the parking lot, watched him get out, look around like he was checking if anyone was watching, then walk into the building. The next image showed the interior hallway. Derek standing outside apartment 3B, Amber's apartment. He knocked, the door opened. Amber appeared in the doorway wearing a red silk robe, and even in black and white footage, you could see what was about to happen. She pulled him inside. The door closed. A new timestamp appeared. 2 hours later. Derek leaving the building, adjusting his tie. That same tie I'd straightened for him that morning when he said he had to work late. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I heard someone whisper, "Is that the groom's wife?" The screens changed again. More security footage. Different dates. March 2nd, March 15th, March 23rd, April 9th. Each one showing the same scene. Derek arriving at Amber's building, going inside, leaving hours later. I couldn't breathe, couldn't look away. My hands were pressed against the pillar, nails digging into the decorated surface. Then the footage changed to something else. Text messages enlarged on the screen so everyone could read them clearly. Amber, he's working late again. Come over. Derek, on my way. Told my wife I have a client dinner. Amber, does she suspect anything? Derek, no, she's too trusting. It's almost too easy. I felt something break inside my chest. Too easy. I'd made it too easy for him. More messages scrolled across the screens. The guests had gone from gasping to complete silence. You could feel the shock in the room like a physical presence. Derek, we need to be more careful. Claire saw us at the cafe. Amber, what did you tell her? Derek, that I was helping you network. She believed it. Amber, your wife is so gullible. Nathan, too. They have no idea. Derek, after the wedding, we should think about making this permanent. Amber, are you saying what I think you're saying? Derek, once you're married to Nathan, you'll have access to his money. I'll divorce my wife. We can be together and set for life. The room erupted, not in gasps this time, but in outraged voices, shocked exclamations. I heard Amber's mother cry out, saw Nathan's father stand up from his seat, his face red with fury, but Nathan just stood there calm as ever, letting the screens tell the story. More messages appeared. These ones made my stomach turn. Amber, I almost feel bad sometimes. Your wife has been so nice to me. Derek, don't. She'll be fine. Women like her always land on their feet. Amber and Nathan. Derek, he's boring anyway. You said so yourself. This is better for everyone. I watched Amber across the room. Her champagne glass had slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Her face had gone completely white. Mascara already starting to run down her cheeks. She was looking at Nathan, shaking her head, mouthing the word no over and over. Derek had set down his drink and was pushing through the crowd, trying to get to the exit, but Nathan's groomsmen had positioned themselves near the doors. They weren't blocking him exactly, but their presence was clear. Derek stopped, trapped. The screens changed again. Photos this time. Professional quality, clearly taken by someone who knew what they were doing. Derek and Amber at a restaurant across town, holding hands across the table. The two of them entering the King's Crown Hotel, the same hotel from the receipt I'd found. Derek's hand on Amber's lower back, guiding her through the lobby. That had been 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, when Derek told me he had a client meeting that ran late. A photo of them kissing in Derek's car, parked in a secluded spot by the river. Amber's hand cupped against his face, his eyes closed. The intimacy of it was worse than anything else. This wasn't just physical. They looked like they cared about each other. Or maybe they just cared about the money, about the plan they'd concocted to use both of us. I hired a private investigator 2 months ago. Nathan's voice cut through the chaos in the room. He sounded conversational, like he was discussing the weather. A friend saw them together and told me. At first, I didn't want to believe it. Amber, the woman I'd introduced to my family, the woman my sister had welcomed with open arms, and Derek, my brother-in-law, someone I'd trusted. Nathan's eyes found Derek in the crowd. Derek had stopped trying to leave and just stood there frozen like a deer in headlights. But the evidence was clear, Nathan continued. They'd been carrying on an affair for months, planning to use this marriage as a way to get access to my money, then leave us both. He turned to look at Amber, who was now sobbing openly, her bridesmaids backing away from her like she was contagious. I thought about canceling the wedding, Nathan said. Calling it off, exposing them privately. But then I realized something. They didn't just betray us. They laughed at us, called us gullible, boring, too trusting. They thought they were so clever, so much smarter than everyone else. His voice hardened, the first real emotion breaking through his calm exterior. So, I decided to let them think they'd won. Let them believe their plan was working. Let them stand at this altar, exchange vows that meant nothing, celebrate with all of you while thinking they'd gotten away with it. Nathan pulled out papers from inside his jacket. These are annulment papers already filed with the court as of this morning. This marriage is void. It never really happened. Amber collapsed into a chair, her wedding dress pooling around her like melted snow. Her mother rushed toward her, but Amber's father grabbed his wife's arm, stopping her. The look on his face was pure disgust. As for you, Nathan said, his eyes locking onto Derek. You need to leave now. Derek finally found his voice. Nathan, listen. This isn't, it's exactly what it looks like, Nathan cut him off. Don't insult everyone's intelligence by trying to lie your way out of this. The evidence is overwhelming. You've been exposed. It's done. Derek's eyes found mine across the room. For the first time since I'd met him 7 years ago, I saw real fear on his face. Not fear of losing me, fear of losing his reputation, his image, everything he'd built. He tried to walk toward me, but Claire appeared out of nowhere, stepping directly into his path. My best friend, who'd tried to warn me, who'd seen the truth before I had. Don't even think about it, Claire said, her voice low and dangerous. You've done enough damage. I just need to talk to her, Derek said. Please, I can explain. There's nothing to explain, Claire said. Everyone here just saw exactly who you are. Now leave before you make this worse for yourself. The groomsmen moved closer to the exits, creating a clear path for Derek to leave. The message was obvious. Go now or be escorted out. Derek looked around the room at the faces of people he'd known for years. Friends, family, colleagues. Every single one of them was looking at him with contempt. He grabbed his jacket from a nearby chair and walked toward the exit, his head down, shoulders hunched. As he passed by me, he tried one more time. Please, he whispered. Let me explain. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. This man I'd built a life with, trusted completely, defended to everyone who'd questioned him. He was a stranger who'd used my love as a weapon against me. Get out, I said quietly. Derek left. The moment Derek disappeared through the doors, the reception hall erupted into chaos. Voices overlapped, people standing, chairs scraping against the floor. Amber's bridesmaids had completely abandoned her. She sat alone at what should have been the head table, her face buried in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs that nobody seemed to care about. Nathan's parents were talking urgently with Amber's parents near the bar. I could see Amber's father's face red with anger and embarrassment. Her mother looked like she might faint. Nathan's mother kept glancing between her son and Amber with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pride maybe, or shock that her son had orchestrated all of this. I stood frozen behind the pillar, my legs refusing to cooperate. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching this happen to someone else, like I'd wake up any moment and realize this was just a nightmare brought on by stress and wedding planning. But the ache in my chest was too real. The humiliation burning through me was too vivid. This was happening. This had happened. Hey, Claire's voice broke through my paralysis. She was suddenly there beside me, her arm around my shoulders. Come on, let's get you out of here. I can't move, I whispered. Claire, I can't. Yes, you can. One foot in front of the other. I've got you. She started to guide me toward a side door, away from the crowd, but Nathan's voice stopped us. Wait. I turned to see my brother walking toward me, weaving through the stunned guests. Some people tried to talk to him, to pat his shoulder, or offer condolences, but he brushed past them all. His focus was entirely on me. When he reached me, he pulled me into a hug. I stood stiff in his arms for a moment. Then something inside me crumbled, and I started crying. Not delicate tears, but ugly gasping sobs that shook my whole body. I'm sorry, Nathan said into my hair. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I'm sorry you had to find out like this. You knew, I choked out between sobs. You knew for 2 months and you didn't tell me. I know. I know. And I'm sorry, but if I just told you, he would have denied it. He would have had some smooth explanation. And part of you would have wanted to believe him. You know you would have. I did know. That was the worst part. Even with Claire's warnings, even with the hotel receipt, even with all the signs, I'd wanted to believe Derek. I'd chosen to believe him because the alternative was too painful. I needed concrete proof, Nathan continued, pulling back to look at me. Proof that couldn't be explained away or denied. I needed him to have no escape route, no way to manipulate you into staying. So, you let the wedding happen. You stood up there and married her, knowing the marriage was never legal. Nathan interrupted gently. The officiant was an actor, a friend from college who owed me a favor. The license I filed was blank. There's no record of this marriage anywhere. I stared at him. The whole thing was fake. The whole thing was a trap. I needed them both here in front of everyone they knew with undeniable evidence. I needed to destroy their reputations the way they were planning to destroy our lives. Claire let out a low whistle. Damn, Nathan, that's cold. They deserved it, Nathan said flatly. They were going to use us, humiliate us, and walk away with my money. All while laughing about how stupid we were. He was right. The text messages had made that clear. Too trusting, too gullible, too easy to fool. Did you ever actually love her? I asked. Amber, I mean. Was any of it real? Nathan's jaw tightened. At first. Yeah, I really liked her. Thought she was genuine. But then my friend Carlos saw them together at a hotel bar. He called me immediately. Thought maybe it was just someone who looked like Amber. So I started paying attention. Really paying attention. And once I knew what to look for, the signs were everywhere. The photographer, I said, understanding clicking into place. The videographer you insisted on. The way you kept suggesting Derek help Amber with wedding errands. I needed documentation and I needed to give them enough rope to hang themselves with. Nathan looked past me toward where Amber still sat, now being quietly lectured by her father. I hired the private investigator to follow them. Every meeting, every hotel visit, every lie they told. I had it all documented. But you still had to plan a whole wedding. Stand at that altar. Say vows. Fake vows to a fake marriage. Nathan said it was worth it to see the looks on their faces when they realized they'd been caught. When they realized they weren't as smart as they thought. I wiped my eyes, smearing mascara across my hand. I feel like an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're trusting. There's a difference. I ignored every warning sign. Claire tried to tell me. You tried to hint at it. I just kept defending him. Claire squeezed my shoulder. That's what love does. It makes us want to see the best in people, even when they're showing us their worst. Across the room, hotel security had arrived. Nathan must have called them earlier. They were escorting Amber out, her ruined wedding dress dragging behind her. Her mother followed, crying. Her father stayed behind, apologizing to guests, his face a mask of shame. Nathan's parents approached us, his mother immediately pulling me into a hug. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry, she said. If I'd known what Derek was doing. Nobody knew, I said, except Nathan. Nathan's father clapped his son on the shoulder. That took guts, son, and planning. I'm proud of you for standing up for your sister, even if your methods were unconventional. Derek won't just walk away from this, Nathan said. The people here tonight, their colleagues, business connections, friends in high places. By tomorrow morning, everyone in our social circle will know what he did. His reputation is finished. It should have made me feel better knowing Derek would face consequences, but I just felt empty, hollow. 7 years of my life, built on lies. How much of our relationship had been real? Had he ever actually loved me, or had I just been convenient? Come on, Claire said gently. Let's get you home. You've been through enough tonight. I don't want to go home, I said. The apartment Derek and I shared suddenly seemed like the last place I wanted to be. Every room would remind me of him, of US, of the life I'd thought we were building together. Then come to my place, Claire offered. You can stay as long as you need. Nathan pulled out his phone. I'll call a lawyer first thing Monday morning. We'll get the divorce started immediately, and I'll make sure you get everything you're entitled to in the settlement. I don't care about the money, I said. You should care, Nathan said firmly. He doesn't get to betray you and walk away unscathed. You're going to take him for everything he's worth, and you're going to use it to build a better life without him. Behind us, the DJ had started packing up his equipment. Guests were filing out, some stopping to offer sympathetic words, others just hurrying past with embarrassed expressions. The fairy lights that had made everything look so magical an hour ago now just seemed garish and fake. This was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it had become a funeral for two relationships that had died long before tonight. But as Nathan walked me toward the exit, his arm around my shoulders, Claire on my other side, I realized something. I'd lost a husband, yes, lost the future I'd planned, the life I'd envisioned. But I hadn't lost everything. My brother had risked his own happiness to protect mine. Had endured months of planning a fake wedding, pretending to love a woman who was betraying him, all to make sure I saw the truth about Derek. That kind of loyalty was worth more than any marriage built on lies. And Claire, who'd never liked Derek from the beginning, but had supported me anyway, who'd tried to warn me gently, and when that didn't work, had simply been there to catch me when I fell. That was real friendship. We walked past the reception hall doors into the cool night air. I took a deep breath, letting it fill my lungs. You're going to be okay, Nathan said quietly. It doesn't feel like it now, but you will be. I looked up at the stars scattered across the dark sky. Somewhere out there, Derek was probably crafting his next lie, his next excuse. Amber was probably doing the same. But I was here standing between two people who actually loved me, who would never betray me, who had proven tonight that they'd go to extraordinary lengths to protect me. Yeah, I said. And for the first time since walking into that bridal suite, I believed it. I think I will be. 3 months later, I sat across from Nathan at our favorite coffee shop, the same one where Claire had seen Derek with Amber all those months ago. The memory didn't sting as much as it used to. The divorce had been finalized last week. Derek had tried to fight it, tried to claim he deserved half of everything, but Nathan's lawyer had destroyed him in court. The evidence of the affair, combined with Derek's plan to defraud Nathan, had turned the judge against him completely. I'd gotten the apartment, the car, and a settlement that would keep me comfortable while I figured out my next steps. Derek's career had imploded exactly as Nathan predicted. Nobody wanted to work with a man who'd been publicly exposed as a cheater and a fraud. Last I heard, he'd moved to another state, trying to rebuild his reputation somewhere people didn't know his story. Amber had disappeared from social media entirely. Her parents had moved out of town, unable to face the embarrassment. The wedding that was supposed to launch her into a life of luxury had instead destroyed everything she'd worked for. I should have felt satisfied by their downfall. Sometimes I did, but mostly I just felt grateful it was over. So, Nathan said, stirring sugar into his coffee. Mom asked me to ask you something. Oh, no. What does she want now? She wants to know if you're ready to start dating again. I laughed. Actually laughed. Are you serious? It's been 3 months. I know. I told her it was too soon. But you know, Mom, she worries. Tell her I'm fine being single for a while. I'm rediscovering who I am without Derek. It's actually kind of nice. And it was. I'd started painting again, something I'd given up years ago because Derek said it was a waste of time. I'd reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with. I'd even started therapy, working through the trust issues and the tendency to ignore red flags. Nathan studied me over his coffee cup. You look different, lighter somehow. I feel lighter, like I've been carrying around this weight I didn't even know was there, and now it's gone. I'm glad. He paused. I know my methods were extreme, the whole fake wedding thing. But I don't regret it. I know you don't. And honestly, neither do I. If you'd just told me I would have confronted Derek privately, he would have lied. I would have wanted to believe him, and I'd probably still be married to him, slowly dying inside while he continued cheating. Exactly. Claire arrived then, sliding into the booth next to me with her usual dramatic flair. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was insane. We're just discussing Nathan's unconventional but effective approach to brotherly protection, I said. Claire grinned. Oh, you mean the most epic wedding takedown in history? Yeah, that was pretty spectacular. I've never seen two people's faces go that white that fast. We all laughed and it felt good, normal, like maybe I really was going to be okay. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. My stomach clenched instinctively. Old habits from when Derek would text from different numbers trying to get me to talk to him. But when I opened it, it wasn't Derek. Hi, this is Thomas from the art gallery. I saw the paintings you submitted last week. We'd love to feature them in our upcoming local artists showcase. Would you be interested in discussing details? I stared at the message, reading it 3 times to make sure it was real. What is it? Nathan asked, noticing my expression. I think I just got into an art show. Claire grabbed my phone, read the message, and screamed loud enough that other customers turned to stare. Oh my God, this is amazing. When did you submit paintings? Last week. I didn't think they'd actually want them. I was just trying. Nathan raised his coffee cup. To trying new things and to shows that end better than they begin. Claire and I raised our cups to meet his. And to brothers who stage elaborate revenge schemes instead of just hiring a hitman like a normal person, Claire added. We dissolved into laughter again, the kind that comes from surviving something difficult and coming out stronger on the other side. As we sat there in that coffee shop, planning which paintings I should feature, and debating whether I was ready for Nathan to set me up with his colleague, absolutely not, I said firmly, I realized something important. The worst day of my life, finding Derek and Amber together, having my marriage exposed as a lie in front of 200 people, had also been the beginning of my best life. The one where I didn't settle for less than I deserved. Where I trusted my instincts and listened to the people who truly loved me. Where I painted and laughed and built something real. Derek and Amber had tried to write my story as a tragedy, but I was turning it into something else entirely, something better, something mine. And honestly, that was the best revenge of all.